science who teaches across a wide range of American politics classes, including public policy and administration, campaigns and elections, and government ethics. David is also a professor in the Hamline University of Minnesota Schools of Law, where he teaches election law. David is the author of 30 books, 100 plus articles on various aspects of American politics, election law, and the media and politics. He is regularly interviewed and quoted in the local, national, and international media on these subjects by agencies including the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, The Economist, and NPR. A three-time Fulbright scholar who has taught extensively in Europe, Professor Schultz is the 2013 Leslie A. Whittington National Award winner for Excellence in Public Affairs Teaching. We are very lucky to have him today. David, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. And what I want to do today is briefly talk about, as it says here, what's on my ballot, and talk about, mostly at this point, it's going to be the Minneapolis elections in the ballot. Maybe I might say a couple things for St. Paul if a couple of you are sort of St. Paulites at this point, but the real focus is going to be on Minneapolis. And it's going to be apolitical in the sense of that I'm not taking any positions on anything, but just to tell you what's going to happen. And so you can basically be ready come for either early voting or for on November 3rd to cast your ballot. So what we should be thinking about in Minneapolis at this point is the fact that a lot is on the ballot this November. So the mayor is on the election, up for election this year, as is the entire city council. The park board is up for election. And also there are 3 ballot propositions or amendments to the city charter that are going to be on. So there's a lot of work that all of you need to do in terms of, let's say, researching your candidates, for mayor, your council, your park board, and the ballot propositions. And so that's going to be what's on the agenda here. Now, before I even get to any of that stuff, let me just also say a few other things that I think are important for understanding this election. That when it comes to the vote for mayor, city council, and the park board, these are 4-year terms. So the votes that you're going to be casting this November put people in office for the next 4 years. The second thing is that, remember, within the city of Minneapolis, the city of Minneapolis has something called ranked choice voting. And what ranked choice voting is going to allow you to do, and they've been using it for quite a few elections now, is when you show up to vote either early or show up on November 3rd. And we're going to talk about the early voting in a second here. But when you show up to vote, you're going to be given a choice for the candidates, and when you vote, for example, for mayor, you're going to see a huge number of candidates for mayor. I think there's 18 candidates for mayor this year. And you're going to be able to list your top 3 choices. So the ballot's going to ask you to pick who's your first choice for mayor, who's your second choice for mayor, who's your third choice for mayor. And the reason why that's important is, let us say, after the ballots are counted, nobody has received at least 50% of the vote. What winds up happening is that the candidate who receives the fewest votes, his or her name is dropped from the ballot, and his votes for him or her are reassigned according to how people rank choice the candidates. And the whole purpose of ranked choice voting is really to eventually get to a point where some candidate gets at least 50% of the vote. So this is important. I mean, people get confused by ranked choice voting, but it's a simple concept. It's picking your first choice, your second choice, your third choice. It's no different than, I say, going into a restaurant and the wait staff says to you, we've got 3 items on the menu, chicken, fish, or beef. And you say, well, gosh, chicken's my first choice, beef's my second, et cetera, et cetera. Same concept here. So keep this in mind, that it'll be for 4-year terms. It will be ranked choice voting. Remember, when it comes to council members, you're not voting for all the council members, but for the member of your particular ward. And then the final thing to note is that there's already early voting going on. And so you can actually cast your ballot early. Hennepin County and in Minneapolis, there's ways of being able to go to the Board of Elections office and basically vote early, or request an absentee ballot, or go in person. All right, so that is options for you to keep in mind if in case you can't get off of work on election day. There are options that started literally a couple of weeks ago up until November to cast your ballot early. As I mentioned to you, I'm not going to talk about the candidates here outside of just saying, remember, there's the mayoral race. Again, remember your councilmatic or ward races for city council, and then there are the park board. But I think where people are most confused at this point, there are 3 amendments to the city charter on the ballot. And all 3 of them are important in a variety of ways. So let me walk through all 3 of them, and then more or less my presentation will be done. And then what I'm going to do is invite people to ask me questions, on anything that we've talked about, including questions about the ballot propositions. Okay, so city question number 1, or ballot proposition number 1, it's going to be entitled Government Structure, Executive Mayor Legislative Council. And how it's going to read, I'll just read it to you. And by the way, all this language about the ballot propositions, if you look up in Google Minneapolis elections, or let's say Minneapolis elections ballot, you'll be able to get to the elections office that will have all this stuff for you to look at in more detail. But the first ballot measure, again, as I said to you, is about government structure. And the question it's going to ask you to vote on is this: shall Minneapolis city charter be amended to adopt a change in its form of government to an executive mayor legislative council structure to shift certain powers to the mayor, consolidating administrative authority over all operating departments under the mayor, and eliminate the executive committee? Whew, that's a lot there. It really is. Okay, let me explain what it's trying to do. Without going into too long of a lecture, there are many different ways that cities can organize themselves. One of the classic models that cities have for organizing themselves, like a structure, like their constitution, if I can use that, is to have something called a weak mayor, strong city council. And this is what Minneapolis presently has. The current mayor of Minneapolis, or I'd say the mayoral structure, I shouldn't say the current mayor, the mayoral structure by design means the mayor is relatively weak as a position, and city council is a fairly powerful body. I don't mean politically, I'm talking about the structure of government. What this ballot proposition would do, amendment, would be to shift Minneapolis from a weak mayor, strong city council to creating what's called a strong mayor system, where the mayor would have more authority, again, over operating departments, over administrative authority. Across the country, I would say that for larger cities, especially cities over 100,000, strong mayor systems are more common. Doesn't mean they're necessarily more desirable, but more common. So here, the simple way of thinking about it is talking about what? Giving more authority to the mayor to be able to act. Okay, that's the first ballot proposition. Okay, city question number 2 is an amendment to the charter that deals with police funding. Currently, under the city charter, there are 2 provisions. One provision requires the city to have a police department. Another provision of the charter requires there to be a minimum level of funding for the police department. This amendment to the charter would change that. And again, let me just read it to you. We okay? You have a question? Okay. Let me read.
Hold on just a second, David. I need to get you unmuted here. Sorry. Or can you unmute yourself?
Was I unmuted the whole time?
No, you've been good the whole time. I accidentally muted you trying to mute someone else. So my apologies.
Okay.
I just didn't want to miss anything you were saying.
I was worried I was muted the whole time. Okay.
No.
Okay.
You're good. You're good. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Okay, so let me start again here on number 2 here. Okay, the second, just in case lost some stuff here. The second ballot proposition refers to police funding or city funding for a police department. Under the current charter, there are two provisions. One provision requires the city of Minneapolis to have a police department. Under the current charter, it currently requires there to be a certain minimal level of funding for the police department. Okay, this ballot proposition would change that. And again, I'll read the wording, but again, please do go look at the actual language yourself. And what it says: shall the Minneapolis City Charter be amended to remove the police department and replace it with a Department of Public Safety that employs a comprehensive public health approach to delivery of functions by the Department of Public Safety, with those specific functions to be determined by the mayor and city council by ordinance, which will not be subject to exclusive mayoral power over its establishment, maintenance, and command, and which could include licensed police officers, if necessary, to fulfill its responsibilities for public safety, with the general nature of the amendments being briefly indicated in the explanatory note below. So I won't even read the explanatory note. There's a lot of words there. Okay. Essentially what this says, this ballot proposition, is that it's going to give to the city council authority regarding how a police department, a Department of Public Safety, shall be structured and how it shall be funded. Technically, that's all it does. Now, I know the political rhetoric has said that this is about defunding the police department and so forth. It may be, it may not be, we don't know. Technically, all this language says is that what? They're going to remove the current charter provisions regarding police and give city council the authority, in consultation with the mayor, to do something. Whatever that may be, that's going to be up to them, which presumably will mean what? The city council and mayor that's elected this November, taking office next year. Okay. Third ballot proposition is called authorizing city council to enact rent control ordinance. It reads, shall Minneapolis City Charter be amended to authorize the city council to regulate rents on private residential property in the city of Minneapolis, with the general nature of the amendments being indicated again in the explanatory note below. And basically what this does is to say that if you were to vote yes, it gives city council the authority to set up rent control or rent stabilization. Actually, it regulates rents here. It doesn't say what that rent control policy will look like, how it will be structured, how it enforced. Again, it merely gives city council authority to be able to do that. The reason why this is being voted on is that cities cannot impose rent control on their own in the state of Minnesota. The only way they can do rent control or rent stabilization is if the voters authorize them to do that in an election. So that's what we have here. Okay, so what we have here to think about is so what we have here then is a summary. Then I'm going to open it up for questions here. Remember, we've got the elections for the different members of the mayor, city council, park board. Those are subject to ranked choice voting, where you get to sort of rank choice your first, second, and third choices. These three ballot propositions are yes or no's. There's no maybes, yes or no's. And then early voting has already started, of which you can absentee or early vote, and you can vote up until election day. All right. So I'm going to stop there. And I think I've got some chat questions here, but I'm hoping there's other people who have questions they can ask me also here.
Yeah,
so
David,
anyhow,
I can read them to you if you'd like.
Okay, great. Please do so.
Yeah, sure,
Okay,
sure. So the very first question that we have is actually, is this ballot specifically for Minneapolis proper, or for example, I live out in Maple Grove, so this isn't something that I would vote on, or is it just for people that live in the city?
It's just for people who live in the city of Minneapolis at this point. Now, I wasn't prepared for this. I don't know if out in, let's say, outside of Minneapolis and other cities, in Hennepin County if there are local elections. There could very well be, but this is exclusively for Minneapolis.
Okay, great.
So because unless you're a resident of Minneapolis, you can't vote in the election.
Sounds good. And then the second question is, Debbie Ferry is interested in the best place to get information on the mayor pool running this year.
The best place to go in terms of information, you might check and see if I'm going to guess here, if maybe the Minneapolis League of Women Voters might have some information that they're putting together there. I think the Star Tribune has done not a bad job in terms of talking about the candidates by way of doing their endorsements. But unfortunately, there's sort of like no one central place that we have a listing of. I think, again, it's like 18 candidates who are running where you can kind of look at them, and there's kind of like maybe a nice chart or something. Okay, NPR, okay, has set up something. Okay, someone is telling me here. So maybe NPR has got something there. But in terms of getting information on all the candidates, I wish we did a better job at this in the state. I know some states have sort of like candidate books that are put together. We don't have anything like that. And again, Ballotpedia has some stuff in terms of who's running. Exactly, I haven't looked at it yet regarding where they stand on the issues and so forth. I'm not sure, because I think that's partly what you want also, is their stance on the issues. And I'm not sure there's a good place. Yeah, and again, the League of Women Voters had a candidate for them. Maybe they have some stuff on that.
Great. Another question, we had somebody that's interested in charter questions and park board at large seats. Is that something we'll be talking about today?
Well, we obviously, if you want to ask me a specific question, I'll try to answer it. I mean, it's kind of a general, I'm not talking about, on purpose, I'm not talking specifically about any of the candidates, that I really think, telling you that there's a park board election, a mayor election, city council. I don't want to go any further in that, because at that point it really gets down to the question of, what are your political preferences and what are you looking for in a candidate?
How do the charter questions get on the ballot?
Okay, how the charter amendments got on the ballot, there's a couple of different routes. Some of them got on the ballot, by way of petition process, where voters, residents of Minneapolis signed a petition to get things such as, for example, the rent control one on there. The police funding one was pushed by city council, and city council is authorized to put that on there. And I believe the one about changing the structure of city government, from a weak to a strong mayor, was done through the Charter Commission in terms of putting it on. So it came from multiple routes. And just, if I could just take 10 seconds here and say that for some of you who are perhaps interested in getting involved, down the line in like Minneapolis government, people always think about running for office and so forth, but the Charter Commission, which is appointed by the chief judge in Hennepin County, that's how it's set up under state law. The Charter Commission has a big influence on basically the structure of Minneapolis government. And many of the cities that some of you live in, if they're not Minneapolis, also have charter commissions. And you may want to think about trying to get involved, because again, it's a good way of having an impact.
We have a question, someone that would like to be unmuted to ask you a question directly.
Sure, please go ahead.
Susan?
Hi, David. Thank you so much for doing this, because yeah, there is some confusing things, and reading it on the internet, it's hard to really understand exactly what they mean. So I have a lot of questions, but I'll start with one right now. But so under Proposition 1, I understand that if we change to a strong mayor system, the mayor would have control of kind of the city agencies. But if somebody were to vote yes on Proposition 2, would that mean that the strong mayor system, the mayor would have control of the agencies except for the police department? Is that basically what that's saying?
That's how I read it also too.
Okay.
And that's why it becomes a little confusing, and you're confused in the right way, because many of us read it exactly the way that you do, that the voters could very well create a strong mayor system, but at the same time still leave with city council a significant amount of discretion regarding how they structure the police department. So I think you're absolutely correct on this. And again, I want to reinforce something also here is that, again, the way the media and the way I'm going to say the story has unfolded for a long time, it's described as what the defund the police movement or amendment. As it's written, it merely says it's up to a future city council to decide how to organize and how to fund a future Department of Public Safety, whatever that would look like.
Gotcha. Can I do one more follow-up
Of course.
that? So on Proposition 2 then, so if we change the structure of the funding for the police department. So one of the things I've heard in the media and just the rhetoric and things like that is, voting yes means that the public safety, the Office of Public Safety or whatever it's called, can hire social workers and, all these other people. Is the police department right now not able to hire social workers and other community workers to work alongside with the police department?
Nothing prevents them from doing that at this time. They could still say, we've got the regular uniformed officers like they have now. And nothing would prevent them from saying that, well, we're also going to hire a bunch of, psychiatrists, psychologists, people with MSWs, whatever, or social workers, whatever, who also would be available to show up and do a variety of tasks.
Okay. Thank you.
Desiree, do we have any more questions?
Not at the moment. We do not.
Now, I'm going to also type in here for everybody, by the way. I'm going to type in my email address. And if even after your breakout sessions today, you've got some additional questions or a question you wanted to ask me, maybe you didn't want to share with everybody else, again, feel free. Hopefully I got it typed right. Feel free to, email me. So it's dschultz@hamline.edu. And I'd be more than happy to sort of respond to, let's say, individual or private questions too.
That's great. Thank you so much, David. This was amazing. I think there's a lot of, especially when it comes to local elections, I think there's a lot of gaps and people don't necessarily either understand or even know what's on their ballot until they actually get there. So the information you provided is incredibly valuable. We're going to go into breakout rooms here in just a minute. Please stay on. We can discuss some topics. There'll be a couple questions that we put up on the screen as well that everybody can get into and meet the fellow attendees today and discuss the topic. So I think, Sherry, are we going into that now?
Yep, I'm going to set those up now, but I want to give everyone a chance to ask David. He's a great resource. So if you have any other burning questions that you want to ask David, I would unmute and ask. Or did we lose David? Oh, it looks like we lost him. Okay. Did he leave? Never mind. Okay, hold on just a second then.
Yep, that sounds good.
Just seeing what we've got. Okay, we will go ahead and open the rooms. You'll get a pop-up. Please accept it and go into your room. If you have any, if you need any assistance, I'll be in the main room. You can always come back by clicking on breakout rooms at the bottom. I will send you a notice. We'll come back together by the top of the hour. So I'll give you a heads up when we're getting ready to close the rooms.